Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm carrying on my sound design series by showing you 3 creative ways to use synthesizers. So let's get right into it. These techniques work in any DAW, but I'm using FL Studio 20 and I'm going to be using the Vital synthesizer for all of these because it's free. I'm using the free version right now and you can follow along, but you can of course use any DAW and any synth that has a similar function. So the first technique I want to show is how to get a perfect low end on a kick drum. Instead of layering samples to try and find the perfect top and perfect bottom end of a kick, you can just reinforce it using a synthesizer, and this is something I do in almost any type of music where the low end and the bass is really important, especially dance music. So the first thing I'm going to do is just let you hear the beat as it is. I like the top end of the kick drum, but there's just not enough weight, not enough low end. It sounds nice, it's just lacking that low end. So I've loaded the Vital synth on my channel rack. I've made a pattern underneath my kick called kick sub, and I'm just going to add in a note every single time the kick hits, so that when the kick sounds, the synth also makes a sound. You can of course do this from the piano roll. If you have a more complex kick drum pattern, you might want to draw in the steps like this. I've also sent the synth to its own track on the mixer, just so that we can process it. The first thing I want to do is change from this sawtooth wave to a sine wave, just like this, and then I'm going to pitch it down. So if you hold shift and scroll on the pitch, it transposes it by a whole octave. Let's take a listen. You'll need to add a little bit of attack to the sound and a little bit of release, just so that you don't get clicks and pops at the start, but let's take a listen. So we've got a very pure and clean sine wave sub underneath the kick, but you can also of course go to the effects chain, add on distortion, filtering, saturation to really shape that low end. But for now we're just going to leave it as it is and blend it back in with the rest of the beat. Let's take a listen with and without. So that sounds a lot better to me, and it's just a case of blending the volume now between the low end and the top end. This next technique is all about creating unique sounds by using a synthesizer as a sort of sampler or resampler for another sound. You could of course use virtually any sound, but I'm going to show you this guitar note that I recorded. So I'm just going to press Alt and left click to pull this open at the same time as Vital so that you can see both at the same time. That's a little trick there for FL Studio. Press Alt and it means that it won't close the synthesizer, so you can see both. Here's the note. It's just a C note that I recorded on my electric guitar. So I can left click and drag this note onto the wavetable view of Vital. And it gives you a few options. Some wavetable synths would just say wavetable, but you've got some options here, so we'll try a few of them. The first is just pitch splice, so just drag and drop it in. And if I scroll through, you can see that you now have a unique wavetable that no one else will have. And it sounds a little bit artificial, but the point is it's unique. And if you now filter this a little bit, change the envelope shape a little bit, maybe add some reverb. You know, you have something that no one else has. A completely unique sound. You didn't have to go in and sort of edit the wavetable manually to get this interesting shape. You just generated it from another sound. I'm just going to initialize the preset and do something similar again. Let's just take that sample. I'm going to go pitch splice, and I'm going to put the wavetable position all the way at the bottom. Then I'm going to use another envelope to control the wavetable position, and you'll hear what this sounds like in just a moment. So now we're getting that same sort of pluck on the guitar. But if you change it just a little bit, so pull the sustain up, let's add some more voices of unison. Let's add some more effects to this, so add some reverb. Beautiful, maybe filter that a little bit more. The main purpose of this technique is just to spark a different sort of creativity. You'll be creating unique wavetables that no one else has. Even though most synthesizers come with hundreds or thousands of really cool wavetables, other people will have those, whereas if you do something like this, you know it's your wavetable, it's unique to you, and you're going to be able to tailor it perfectly to what you want. The last technique I want to show you is using a synthesizer as a percussive element instead of just like a typical tonal instrument. So again, using Vital, I'm just going to turn the oscillator off and I'm going to turn the noise on. I'll turn the output level down a little bit, and if I play any key, we just have noise. I'm going to use an LFO to change the level of this noise. So if I link LFO 1 to this level, now you'll see the noise will go up and down, which is a little bit boring. So if I take a different pattern, for instance, one of these sort of gates like this, like a shuffle gate, let's turn that up a bit. All of a sudden we have this rhythmic element, and you can of course change these points. Vital also lets you change the grid, so instead of 8 you could have 16, you could have a lot more on the Y grid, so you can really get detailed with how you want this sound to be. So you could really go into a lot of detail here, but this is just sort of like a rhythmic, almost like a sort of hi-hat or a shaker pattern. But there are lots of ways to use rhythmic elements in a synthesizer. So let's turn on oscillator 1 again. I'm going to go back to like the basic shape, the sub, and this is just going to be experimental. Let's use LFO 2, link that to the level of the sub, and I'm just clicking and dragging some points like this because I just want the sub to trigger at the start of each bar like that. Let's pitch this down as well. Let's hear what this sounds like. So you can hear that low end thump at the start of each bar. Change the frequency or the tempo. And you can see that we're already building up a little bit of a groove using a synthesizer. So it's just something to think about. There are so many tutorials on YouTube and sort of all over the internet that show very creative ways to use synthesizers to create percussion elements or grooves. And it's something that I guess a lot of people, we just sort of forget about, because we usually think about synths and instruments in a tonal way, you know, creating chords and melodies. But synthesizers, especially ones like Vital, are extremely versatile, and it would probably be wrong to neglect the percussive and rhythmic capabilities of a synthesizer as well. Anyway, the purpose of this tutorial was to try and inspire some different sort of creativity right at the start of the year. I don't want to go into every little detail of these techniques. The rest is really for you to experiment with and enjoy and find your own sound. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.